A woman's car broke down on a desolate country road right as a storm was rolling in. She had no cell signal, no shelter, just the sound of thunder getting closer and the sky turning the color of wet concrete. She was completely stranded until Caleb Morgan, a quiet, silver-haired crop duster pilot, brought his plane down through the heavy wind and rain, cutting a long curve through the gray and landing in a muddy clearing to help her. The next morning, an F-16 would intercept his crop duster in midair, turning what looked like an ordinary rescue into something no one could have expected. Caleb had been flying that old crop duster for years, longer than most people in the county had been driving. His yellow biplane, patched in more than one spot, was a regular blur over the fields. He didn't fly fancy. He didn't fly high, but he flew well, and he always landed right where he needed to. That day, just as he was preparing to call it off early due to the storm, he caught a glimpse of something unusual on a back road below. A car, pulled halfway into the ditch, hazard lights blinking faintly. He looped back once, just to be sure. There was someone outside the vehicle, a woman, standing in the rain, waving her arms. Most wouldn't have seen her from the sky. But Caleb did. Against every rule in the book, he brought the plane down in a fallow stretch of dirt near the edge of the field. The wheels hit hard, mud sprayed, the tail fish-tailed slightly before settling. He shut the engine down and climbed out slowly, rain already soaking through his flight jacket. The woman was in her mid-40s, wearing a business coat and soaked-through heels, shielding her eyes as she hurried toward him. "You landed. For me?" "I reckon I did," he said, voice low and steady. "Storm's coming hard from the west. You won't get far on foot." She was clearly startled, not just by the plane, but by the fact that someone had actually stopped. "My phone's dead. Car just quit. You all right otherwise?" She nodded. "Just cold, and very lost." "Well," Caleb said, tipping his cap slightly, "I can help with one of those." He walked her to the plane without a second thought, gave her his spare jacket, helped her climb in, careful not to rush. The inside smelled like oil, canvas, and old leather, but it was warm. "Buckle that belt," he said, pointing. "It's not a smooth ride, but it'll get you where you're going." She looked at him, uncertain. "You do this kind of thing often?" "Nope," Caleb said. "Just seemed like the right time." And with that, the engine roared back to life. The small plane lifted off the wet ground with a growl and a shudder. Caleb guided the stick with quiet confidence, eyes locked on the dark clouds ahead, gauging where they thinned. The rain pelted the windshield, but he didn't seem nervous, just focused. The woman sat stiffly beside him, wrapped in his oversized jacket, her knees tucked in tightly, hands gripping the seatbelt like it was all that kept her in the sky. "Relax your shoulders," Caleb said over the engine noise. "You'll ride better if you don't fight the bumps." She tried to ease up, barely managing a nod. They cut through a low patch of clouds, and the world beneath them vanished in mist. For a few long minutes, there was only the hum of the engine, the creaking of old wings, and the storm battering the fuselage. Then, just as quickly as it had started, they broke through the worst of it. Sunlight spilled through the upper cloud shelf, soft and golden. Below them, the patchwork of farmland peeked through like nothing had happened at all. The woman finally exhaled. "You act like this is nothing," she said. "I've flown in worse," he replied, keeping his eyes forward. "Military?" He didn't answer right away, just flicked a switch, checked a gauge, then said, "A long time ago." She studied his face, the weathered lines, the quiet eyes, the kind of man who'd seen more than he let on. "I'm Elena," she offered finally. "Caleb," he said. "That's quite a thing you did, landing like that." "Wasn't much of a choice," he said. "Storm was going to bury you if I didn't." "Well," she said after a beat, "thank you." He just nodded once. That was enough. 20 minutes later, he brought the plane down near a service road beside a diner with a gas pump. A friend of his owned the land nearby and wouldn't ask questions. He killed the engine, and the sudden silence felt heavier than the wind. Elena pulled off the headset and looked around. "Where are we?" "Closer than you were," he said. "Phone inside. Food too. You'll dry off faster." She climbed down carefully, boots landing in a puddle. She turned to offer him money. He waved it off without looking offended. "Just glad I saw you when I did." She stood there for a moment, soaked, shivering, unsure of what had just happened. Then Caleb tipped his cap, throttled the engine back to life, and was gone. wheels kicking up a spray of water as the old crop duster lifted off and vanished into the sky. No name, no card, no story. Just a quiet man in an old plane doing the right thing. The next morning, the sky was clear. Not a cloud in sight, no wind, no storm, just the kind of crisp early light that made the fields glow like gold leaf. Caleb was already up before sunrise. His coffee was strong, black, and silent, like everything else in his life. He checked the oil on the plane, patted the nose twice out of habit, then climbed aboard and started the engine. The crop duster rattled to life like it was born to keep flying. Same route, same fields, same timing, just another morning, or so he thought. By 7:45, Caleb was cruising at his usual altitude, lining up for the Southern Ridge Pass that skirted the edge of controlled military airspace. He'd flown it a dozen times without issue, knew exactly how far to stay out of their lines, but something felt off. He caught a glint in the sky, not sun, not bird. And then the radio crackled. November 9 or 8 Charlie, this is Central Control. Identify your flight path and purpose. Over. Caleb blinked. That wasn't a weather call. He clicked the mic. Control, this is N98C. Just a local ag run. Crop duster. Staying clear of your airspace. Over. There was a pause. Then another voice, more clipped. Be advised, you are approaching restricted coordinates. Adjust course immediately. Caleb frowned. I've got visual markers. Staying outside the perimeter. No reply. He looked left. That's when he saw them. Two dark shapes in the sky, low, fast, slicing through the air like scalpels. F-16s. And they weren't just cruising. They were closing in, fast. His radio flared again. Unidentified aircraft, reduce speed, hold heading, do not deviate. You are being intercepted. Caleb didn't panic, didn't flinch. He'd seen intercepts before. Not like this, not aimed at him, but enough to know the drill. He reduced throttle slightly, held his line, hands firm but relaxed. Copy that, he said calmly, holding heading. The jets slid in on either side of him, close enough that he could see the helmet of the pilot to his left. No expressions, but definitely watching. Caleb kept flying, not afraid, not angry, just confused. He clicked the mic again. Control, this is N98C. Can someone tell me what this is about? The silence on the other end dragged. Then, just as the second F-16 began to slide a little closer, too close, a new voice cut across the channel. Not military, not cold, female, calm, firm. Stand down. That man is not a threat. He saved my life yesterday. Caleb blinked. That voice? Elena? The next pause was shorter. Then came another voice, deeper, clipped, official. Copy that. Intercept aborted. Maintain escort pattern. And just like that, the tension in the sky changed. The F-16s pulled back slightly, sliding into position like bodyguards instead of hunters. Caleb let out a quiet breath. He didn't know what Elena had said, or who exactly she was. But this wasn't just about a storm anymore. Caleb's hands remained steady on the controls, but his mind raced. The sudden appearance of F-16s flanking his crop duster was unsettling. He had adhered to his usual flight path, always careful to avoid restricted airspace. Yet here he was, escorted by military jets. The radio crackled again. Unidentified aircraft, you are entering restricted airspace. Adjust your course immediately. Caleb responded calmly. This is N98C, a civilian crop duster on a routine flight. I'm maintaining my usual route, clear of restricted zones. A tense silence followed. Then a new voice broke through the static, calm, authoritative, and unmistakably familiar. Control, this is Colonel Elena Ross. The pilot of that crop duster assisted me during an emergency yesterday. He poses no threat. Caleb's eyes widened. Elena? The woman he had helped during the storm? The radio buzzed again. Copy that, Colonel Ross. N98C, maintain current heading. F-16s will escort you to the nearest airstrip. Caleb acknowledged. Understood. The F-16s adjusted their formation, now flying alongside him in a protective escort, rather than an interception. As they approached the designated airstrip, Caleb prepared for landing. The F-16s maintained their positions until his wheels touched down, then peeled away into the sky. On the tarmac, a group awaited his arrival. Among them stood Elena, now in full military uniform, her demeanor composed yet warm. Caleb disembarked, approaching her with a mix of curiosity and humility. I didn't expect to see you again, he said. Elena smiled. I owed you a proper thank you. She extended her hand. Colonel Elena Ross, U.S. Air Force. Caleb shook her hand, nodding. Caleb Morgan, just a farmer with a plane. Elena gestured to the group behind her. These are members of my team. They wanted to meet the man who went out of his way to help someone in need. Caleb shifted uncomfortably. I didn't do anything special. Elena met his gaze. That's exactly why it was. The group shared a moment of quiet respect. No grand ceremony, no media presence, just sincere acknowledgement of a good deed. After some time, Caleb prepared to depart. Before he did, Elena handed him a small box. Consider this a token of our appreciation, she said. Inside was a challenge coin, bearing the insignia of her unit. Caleb looked at it, then at her. Thank you. He boarded his plane, the engine roaring to life. As he took off, the group watched, the crop duster ascending into the sky, leaving behind a trail of gratitude and newfound respect. The crop duster touched down on the airstrip like it had done 1,000 times before, except this was no farm road or dusty field. This was military tarmac, and Caleb knew the second his wheels hit the ground. This wasn't about restricted airspace anymore. This was something else. The F-16s peeled away in perfect formation, roaring upward like shadows vanishing into the clouds. Caleb eased the throttle back and rolled to a stop just short of the hangar line, his boots finding the pavement a moment later as he climbed down from the cockpit. He expected questions, maybe a warning, maybe even a fine. What he didn't expect was to see her. Elena stood near the flight tower, flanked by 2 officers. Not in soaked business clothes anymore. She wore a crisp blue uniform, medals glinting on her chest, posture rigid but not unkind. Colonel Elena Ross. She stepped forward. Mr. Morgan. He nodded, unsure of how to address her now. Didn't figure I'd be seeing you again, especially like this. She smiled softly. I thought it was only fair. You came out of nowhere for me. Seemed right to return the favor. Caleb looked around. No press, no cameras, just a handful of base personnel standing back, watching respectfully. I thought I'd crossed a line, he said. You did, Elena replied, but not the kind that gets people arrested. She gestured for him to follow her inside the hangar, where a small table had been set up. On it, a folded flag, a hot cup of coffee, and a framed patch from her unit. He stared at it for a second, unsure what to say. We don't normally do ceremonies like this, she said, but the men and women on this base wanted to acknowledge something rare. I didn't do much, Caleb said quietly. Just saw someone who needed help. She shook her head. You did what most people wouldn't. They stood there a moment in silence. 2 people from different worlds, somehow pulled into the same current for a few short hours. Then she extended her hand. He shook it, firm, respectful. Before he left, one of the officers handed him a small envelope. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Just something from the general, the officer said with a smile. He heard the full story this morning. Turns out he's her brother. Caleb blinked, surprised. Elena nodded. Family's got a way of showing up when it matters. He tucked the envelope into his pocket without opening it. Didn't need to. When he climbed back into his plane, the tarmac was quiet again. But something about the sky felt different now, like it remembered him. Caleb didn't say much on the flight home. The sky had softened, the wind barely more than a whisper across the wings. Below him, the familiar patchwork of farmland spread out like a quilt. Green rows, faded barns, sleepy gravel roads, just like he left it. But something inside him had shifted. He landed back at the same dusty airstrip he'd taken off from that morning. The same ruts, same creaking gate. He shut down the engine, climbed out, and stood for a moment in the quiet. No jets overhead now, just birds and the low hum of wind through wheat. Back at the farmhouse, he poured himself a cup of coffee and set the small envelope Elena's brother had given him on the table. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he walked out to the old barn, where he kept a faded U.S. flag folded above the workbench, a flag he hadn't touched in years. Next to it, he pinned the Air Force unit patch she had given him, not for display, just for remembrance. The next week, folks around town started talking. Someone said they saw military jets shadowing Caleb's crop duster. Someone else said the governor called his house. Another swore he saw a black car parked down the road the morning after. Caleb never confirmed a word of it, didn't deny it either. He just kept flying. Same fields, same sky, Same man. Occasionally, a young kid would stop him at the feed store. "Hey, Mr. Morgan, is it true the Air Force followed you?" He'd smile just a little and say, "Only when I get too close to their fences." They'd laugh, and that would be the end of it. But the truth lived quiet, right where it belonged, in the silence between two people who understood what it meant to do the right thing without needing to be seen, and in a patch of sky that remembered a man who once turned around in a storm because someone needed help. Not all heroes land on runways. Some of them land in the mud, give you their coat, and fly off before you even learn their name.